We're back with
Yes,
Formula
I have
One, and with me to do this show on this 1st of October is Mustafa, Johnny, and Kole Williams. I'm still Afolabi.
yeah,
Welcome to another Formula
happy
One show.
birthday to Nigeria.
Yeah, happy
I have
birthday
my
to
Hendrix.
Nigeria.
So I'm
Hey.
gonna pour. I'm gonna drink it from the bottle. Hendrix gin from the bottle.
Yeah. One for Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next one is for Red Bull, for Pierre Vacher, and for Lauren Necky, or however his name is pronounced. Our show today is about them. We've been studying. We've been reading and researching, and we have our own theory about Red Bull. My argument is that Red Bull is the car of the future for future drivers like Max Verstappen, but it's going to have some ups and downs. We all know that Max Verstappen has a fronty style of driving, which ultimately led to understeer and back stability because his style is so fronty. Adrian Newey, who I've been researching about, he's more of a loophole breaker than an aerodynamicist, if you want to be the truth. Hopefully some people will stop me about that. Newey tried to hide it by putting in the brake differential thing. Once they took that out, we saw that Max Verstappen had been giving feedback to the team, which led to a little bit too much frontiness at the expense of overall balance of the team. And once they found that out in the middle of early last year, it was too late to do anything. And they've only just recovered from it by adding a new floor. This new floor, which somehow manipulates, it's in the Venturi tunnel. It somehow has made the car a lot more stable and have back stability, regardless of Verstappen's fronty style of driving. So what I'm saying is that this new floor that they've added and some other adjustments they've made in the back of the car actually is going against the inclination of the way Verstappen drives. But it's okay because when Verstappen sets up for races, all he'll do is narrow the wing to get the pointiness he wants. But in the past, when he would do that, the car would be way too unstable. So by adding this floor and by adding some things to the rear stability, which Afalabi can elaborate more, they've added a counter mechanism to the way Verstappen drives. And Verstappen himself is altering the way he drives on low speed corners to accommodate the fact that you can't be too fronty on a slow speed corner. But what he'll now do is double down when he goes on high speed corners. What he'll do is get a lot of entry speed and carry that speed through the corners to make up for any slowness they have on the slow speed corner. So what I mean by the car of the future is that the car of the future is going to have to be very fronty for people who have sensitive inputs, but mainly the one thing that Verstappen does well, when you're going on high speed corners, Verstappen is the best because he doesn't brake late and hard. What he does is he's patient before he turns in because he waits for the car to rotate. But that type of driving is so sophisticated and smooth that you have to be almost like a psycho to be able to do it. You have to be calm. You have to have a feel for the car because you're putting so much in the front that if you turn too soon before the rotation, you're going to have understeer. So this is the car of the future. And we see that because even McLaren added more frontiness to their car, more front grip. They moved the front rack steering forward. But the difference is they don't have Verstappen behind the wheel. So the car of the future is a car that's very fronty, that can take advantage of high-speed corners, that can take advantage of all these tracks like Suzuka and all these high-speed tracks and take advantage and win on all those tracks. And at the same time, do well on some of the slower speed tracks, slower to medium speed tracks. It will never do well on tracks like Monaco. That's just too slow. But all the fast tracks and all the medium and high speed tracks will require a frontiness, but some sort of balancing mechanism for it. And also a driver who's crazy enough to take advantage of whatever high speed corners they have, because there will still be deficits in the slow speed corner. But we all know F1 is a speed race. We're tired of all these low speed tracks. It's a bunch of bullshit. I don't want to see anymore. I thought I'd give us some more insights on the upgrades they brought and how it helped to bring more real stability, despite the fact that Verstappen and the car itself lean heavily on the front.
So, like you said, at the start of the year, the RB just didn't give Max Verstappen the stability that he needed. Even though the front was pointy and reasonably streamlined, the rear did not offer enough grip. So the car became unpredictable when entering corner and exiting corners. The floor could not generate consistent downforce. So basically, there was an aerodynamic imbalance. So, and then coupled with the fact that Verstappen's attacking style even made the problems more glaring, and hence why he described the car as undrivable sometimes. So basically, they adopted a redesign of the floor. they reshaped something they call the Venturi tunnels and the floor edges. This helped to improve airflow under the car and gave them a steadier rear platform, especially in slow corners. Also, they made the suspension, the spring and the suspension, the spring and the shock absorber, they helped in keeping it at the right height, so the floor could work properly. So the car became a little bit more stable, and they worked on the front brake ducts as well, which was a design that was inspired by McLaren. So this improved the tire temperature control, gave Verstappen better turn in grip, and helped reduce the wear of the tires. So, and this was a big reason for why he did so well in Monza, basically.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when we say this car is more stable, we're speaking relatively. Because if Yuki gets it, this car fucking unstable. It's more stable only for a cycle. It feels more stable because it's still it's still a narrow window.
Yes, a
But
narrow
on this narrow
window.
window, it's the perfect car now with this narrow window, because there's a window in which it's extremely fronty, and for most drivers, it won't have balance. But if you're like Verstappen, who should actually be a air jet fighter rather than a Formula
And
E
I guess the
driver.
corrections were made based on Verstappen's feedback,
Yeah,
due
but
to
not
his
only that,
driving style.
feedback. Yeah. And so what has changed now is that with Christian Horner and Newey too, I'm one of the few people that I'm not going to over eulogize Newey. Newey is an aerodynamicist, but he relies on concepts and creativity rather than on data. Now, Pierre Vacher relies on data, but the team is not invested in a good wind tunnel and in being slow and deliberate. McLaren is slow and deliberate. Williams is slow and deliberate. McLaren was coming last place 3 years ago with Norris. During that time, they were doing wind tunnel tests and waiting patiently before pushing the car too forward. Red Bull pushed the car too forward. Pierre Vacher, who's the technical director, said, okay, we don't have the data, but let's take a risk. So because they were impatient, they didn't want to lose for a couple of years before they start doing well. That's why I'm predicting that next year Williams will do well, because Williams, all these young guys, also the guy who's coming now as the team leader, Mekki, they're all from a new school of people who rely on purely on data and take their time. But what's so good about Lawrence Mekki is that he's relying on data, but because he doesn't have a good wind tunnel, he's also relying on feedback from Verstappen, and also they're researching. I feel that one of the reasons McLaren is the best team in the world is because they cooperate with universities that do scientific aerodynamic research and pay the money, and they're getting feedback from people who make jets, who do these things, and they're applying it to their car. Rebel hadn't been doing that when Horner was there, because he had to take most of the budget to chase that girl who was a mechanic, to give her money so she could do stuff with him. You see what I'm trying to say? The point I'm making is that there was some sort of corruption in Red Bull. They weren't spending money on their technology. There's no reason for them to have a World War One wind tunnel. Not even a World War One. The wind tunnel they're using is the wind tunnel that Leonardo da Vinci was using when he was trying to make the first flying machine.
What?
All right, on that note, we'll go to Kool-Aid. What are your thoughts in general on all this?
Yeah, it's an interesting. It's interesting the changes that Red Bull have put into the car for this second half of the season, or shall I say the finale. This track in Baku is a slower track. And so I think Red Bull is trusting on the fact that their car is fast enough that they're going to make it less twitchy and more stable. And as you know,
Yeah.
the more stable the car is, it means the more downforce, it means you're sacrificing on the straight line speed. And since McLaren are not the strongest on the straight line speed, and the only real car that's really good on the straight line speed that matches Red Bull is Ferrari, and we know that Ferrari are in shambles. I think that Mercedes are quite strong in this area when it comes to balancing the car and not requiring straight line speed on fast tracks.
They don't
They're
have
going
enough
to be the
speed,
ones that
though.
are going to challenge. Sorry?
Yeah. The problem
Yes,
with
so they're the
Mercedes
ones
is
that are
that they
going to
don't
be
have
the
enough. Yeah.
main challenges to Verstappen and to the McLarens. I mean, the McLarens still have a fantastic straight line speed. I don't want to overplay the to overplay to make it seem like they don't. I mean, that would be a great underestimation. Um, but yes, the car has been a bit more. They've tweaked it a little bit more so that driver two doesn't struggle as much as they have done. You know, this car was the best car 2 years ago with Perez and Verstappen. and the tweaking has gone so far towards a situation where it's only Verstappen that knows how to handle the car. So I think they're trying to make it a bit more driver friendly and a bit better on the slow tracks for the final races of the season.
Yeah. If F1 was all high speed tracks, Red Bull would be unbeatable. But I want to say that they don't want to give up that high speed because they just have to take a different approach on slow tracks. On slow tracks, Verstappen is going to have to, on wherever the high speed corners are, he's going to have to take in maybe 6-8 kilometers per hour faster than other people into the corner and build up on those sectors. So Verstappen will always dominate one sector, the fast sector. But what he needs to find out now is how to find ways to solve the problem that when you have that much straight line speed, you don't have as much balance on the corners. And it seems like they're doing it. But I'm sure that they've lost a little bit of straight line speed because of that. But that's where you're now getting into what I call the middle ground. Same thing with McLaren. McLaren last year had more balance than they did this year. But to get faster, they put more front grip. But by doing that, they lost a little bit of balance. And that's what we saw at Baku and at other tracks where it's unstable for the driver. So it's always a balancing act. But I have the idea that with the team that Red Bull has and McKee have, all of them sit down together, the technical directors, the team principal, the drivers and the engineers, and they just try to find a window which addresses everything. But it's always going to be front oriented for high speed. But they want to make sure that it has enough speed on the corners that it's okay. So what you will see, my prediction was that with this car, Verstappen will be unbeatable on all high speed tracks. He'll be unbeatable on medium speed tracks that have what was I going to say? That are technical and have 90-degree corners. The only tracks he'll lose on are these spacious or these very slow tracks like Monaco. But with his speed, that would be enough for him to always beat McLaren. But we know next year things are going to change. There'll still be ground effects next year. So as long as they're ground effects, Verstappen still has a chance of beating these guys. It's not just going to be about engine power. But within 2 or 3 years, it'll evolve to just being about the power of the hybrid engines. What are your thoughts, Mr. Johnny, in general?
Yeah.
I'm just talking grammar. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how Red Bull are like, they're not being complicit. They're not sitting back and like letting McLaren run away with the title because it looks like they still want to like really throw their hat in. They really want to like at least see what they can do to win it as well. So they're really making all those nice changes. That's I actually thought that they'll be like Ferrari and Mercedes are just kind of they've sort of given up for the year and waiting for the year to to finish.
Spain was
But
their
Red
lowest
Bull,
moment. Spain. I thought they were finished after. Yeah.
Red Bull are really making moves, and then with all this, I wonder if all this kind of changes would have been made if Honor was still around, or whether it is just it's inspired by the new chief, and if it will. But and then again, we don't know how it's going to even work out this
Yeah,
weekend.
but
If
here's the
all these
thing.
things.
So here's the thing. When Horner was in power, first of all, Horner chased Newey and those guys out because Newey and Horner both wanted shares in that company. So now when Horner got rid of when Newey left, Horner wanted to appear as if he's the boss. So he was leaning too much on this guy, Pierre Vacher. He said Vacher is my guy. That's why we got rid of Horner. I mean, no, got rid of Newey. No, when Horner was there, he got rid of Newey, or Newey left, but because Horner basically drove him away by not giving him power and by giving too much power to Pierre Vacher. But the problem with Pierre Vacher is that he doesn't have a wind tunnel to work with, and they're not giving him time to do the data. So he beginning to say, okay, well, let's just try this, let's try that. He was doing guesswork, what they call
Yeah.
Hail Mary. I'm not dissing him, say Hail Mary, let's try this, let's try that. That was not working, and he wasn't listening to Verstappen. If I remember 2 weeks ago, Pierre Vacher and Verstappen were arguing at Monza about Pierre Vacher told Verstappen, "There's no way you can cut the wing and do well," and Verstappen refused to listen to him and did it anyway and did well. You see what I'm saying? So Pierre Vacher doesn't have intuition. As soon as McKee came in, he said, "Okay, we don't have a wind tunnel, so what we're going to do is work with the car we have and just do problem solving for setup with this car as it is, which means we have to use the data, but we also have to use intuition. Intuition is better than guessing. We use intuition, and we have to use max. And then also, while we wait for because these things were coming even before McKee came in, the floor and everything. But it takes time to develop it because they learn from McLaren, which is why McLaren doesn't care now because McLaren knew that eventually other teams would find out what they're doing. But now that you found out, it's too late because they've won the title. You get my point. So I think that Horner's problem was not that he's incompetent, but because he wanted so much power, he was playing games with the team. You want power, so you back your own mechanic or your own engineer only because you chose that engineer and it makes you look good, not because the engineer is good. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Johnny?
Yeah, he must have been drinking too much Red Bull then, you know.
Yeah, he was drinking too much of that
high on his own supply.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he started and you know what I hear? I hear that Horner and this is gonna be the team of the year. Horner and next year Horner and Briatore will be the bosses of Alpine. So Briatore will be like the money man and Horner will be the executive. That's gonna be the most dangerous it's not for sure. Can you imagine those two bad boys on the same team, Mr. Johnny? That shit is crazy. Briatore. And you know what? I'm angry at Briatore. Do you know that Briatore says that he wants to make every weekend sprint race every weekend because it'll bring in young drivers. That will destroy the fabric of F1. What do you think?
My question would be, I mean, why sprint race in the first place? If you're not going to bring it in, then what's the use in it? I mean, I don't
no, he said they want to bring it in and have it every week. Every week
exactly, but
to make it more exciting.
If you're not, for me, I would like to even see it every week, but if it's not every week, but then they shouldn't show it at all. I mean, they shouldn't.
Make your choice. Yeah, because what it does is it brings up too much chaos.
Yeah, and then the engines always suffer, and you know, stuff like that. You know, so I don't know.
I actually think sprint race is better than free practice because after sprint race, you get to change your car. So because it gives you real race conditions rather than the free practice. So it's a good thing. But anyway, we're getting off topic. Kunle is like, what am I doing here? Am I eating my elbow by myself? And then also, I thought I'd be taking notes.
Okay.
Kunle, what are your thoughts before we go to the end with Afolabi?
Yes, it's been an interesting look and insight into how Red Bull are going to manage the new changes that they're going to put for this part of the season. As I said before, I'm interested to see how Mercedes are going to relate to it, and also there might be an interesting, spicy little clash between the four. If I include, I think let me say five. Between Russell, Leclerc, Verstappen, and the two McLarens, I could literally chuck a dice and roll, and I don't know what's going to happen in Singapore this weekend. I'm looking forward to see what happens in the practice tomorrow.
It's going to be hot, so I'm going to rule out Mercedes because the weather is going to be very hot. Yeah. Do you know that
I'd like to see rain.
If it rains, I predict Verstappen's going to win. I'm praying for rain.
I think Mercedes might have gotten over their temperature problems, I think, or they've eroded them to an extent that it might not be so much of a problem. But we're going to know. We'll find out tomorrow.
Yes. So anyway, I'll just end with this. Lauren McKee, why he's good, because, see, Lauren McKee is an engineer, but as a team principal, the job is more of coordinating the whole team. It's just like in football, when you see a manager, he's not the one that comes up with the tactics. He has a bunch of scientists who do it for him. McKee's big thing was the methodology that's changed at Red Bull. Intuitive, simple. They're keeping it simple now. You know, with Adrian Newey, you have to look at a board with calculus written on it. Then the coefficient of the rain and the wind will put it together. McKee would be just like, this car has too much understeer. Then they just get the mechanics to fix it. Adrian Newey would be like, we have to get a Venturi tunnel with a T-bone, and we have to look at the speed of the air. How much Verstappen would be like, this brakes fucking suck. Fix that shit. Simple. That's all you have to say. And they keep it simple. What do you think, Afolabi, before we get out?
Yeah, I quite agree with you. I think everything, the onus is on Verstappen, his ability to, his precision, precise driving behind the wheel is what truly unlocks this RB21.
His understanding of the car and being able to give
understanding of the car. So he's able to keep the car in its aerodynamic sweet spot through very small but controlled and measured inputs. And his driving style also suits the car's pointiness, like you usually allude to. He's able to handle, there's a fine line between front grip and rear stability. And I think he's able to handle this better than anyone else on the grid. And that's why their performances have gone up so well.
Very, very good. Okay, so we're out. Kunle, I guess I'll see you at 4:45 and I'll follow you.
All right.
take us out this time, Mr. Afolabi.
Okay, it's been another very insightful and interesting Formula One podcast. And from Mustafa, Mr. Johnny, and Kunle, we'll be back again.
Okay, so thank you guys. Okay.